Hi, welcome to Hollywood Crime Scene. This is Rachel Fisher.
Hi, this is Desi Jedeikin. Well, this week we are going to talk about, I don't know if it's exactly a curse, but the curse of the cast of the hit 80s sitcom Diff'rent Strokes.
Oh.
Rachel, did you watch Diff'rent Strokes ever? It might have been a little before you.
It was a little before me. I remember it being on maybe like, I don't know if they showed it on Nick at Night or not.
Right, I don't remember if it was like a rerun.
But it was just a little before my
Right.
time, so I actually didn't.
Okay, well, I watched Diff'rent Strokes a bit. And so if you don't know, the series starred Gary Coleman and Todd Bridges. They played Arnold and Willis Jackson, and they were two little black boys who got adopted by the person their mom worked for. She died. She was like a housekeeper, I think. So the mom died, and then the boys who were in Harlem, of course, they got to move in with this person, this Park Avenue businessman named Philip Drummond, and his daughter Kimberly.
Who had some great bangs.
Yes, and she had some really good 80s genes too, because I was watching a few things. Anyways, the other characters, there were three maids during the series run. Edna Garrett, who left at some point to start Facts of Life.
Mrs. Garrett.
Mrs. Garrett,
yes.
yeah. So she kind of got her own spin-off series. And then there was one called Adelaide Brubaker, which I don't remember. And then I do remember the last one, whose name was Pearl Gallagher. During the last few seasons, they also had their very own Cousin Oliver sort of moment. And that was when Philip Drummond, I can't remember if he married Dixie Carter's character, but she had a little red-haired boy named Sam who was super fucking irritating. Did you ever see Sam?
No.
He was like a little red-haired moppet and super fucking. He was Southern too, so he had a really deep Southern accent.
He was like their last ditch.
He was their last-ditch effort to kind of revive the series,
right?
And it didn't work. So Gary Coleman was sort of like the Shirley Temple of his day. He was like super popular.
He was so
child
cute.
star. He was very cute. So he was definitely the breakout hit of the show, and he had like the catchphrase, "What you talking about, Willis?" Which I'm sure we all know.
Very famous.
So the show was, a pretty big hit show. It was also really popular for having like sort of popularized the idea of special episodes, and they would tackle topics like racism, drug use, hitchhiking, kidnapping, and other things. Actually, we're going to have a really good mini-sode devoted to this. So if you haven't donated to our Patreon, now might be a good time. Anyways, it was a popular show. So the first sign that maybe something was not all good in paradise or perfect in paradise, I don't know if there's a right term to say that, was the child stars on the show started having some issues. Midway through season 6, Dana Plato, who played Kimberly, Philip's daughter, she became pregnant. Initially, she approached the producers, and they were going to try to include her pregnancy in the show, but then they decided not to, and she was dismissed from the series and kind of came back a few times as a guest star.
How old was she supposed to be on the show at that point?
15, 16.
So she was still a teenager.
Yeah, she was a teenager when she got pregnant.
Wow.
And then, so she was written out of the show, and she came back to do another very special episode about bulimia. So that was like her one big last hurrah on the show. In the spring of 1985, NBC canceled the show, and then ABC picked it up for another season. And then it eventually got canceled a year later in March of 1986. So if you didn't watch the show, you probably do remember that the stars of the show had a lot of legal troubles and just drama, and they kind of became tabloid fixtures pretty much within years after the show ended. So I'm going to kind of break down each one of their stories, the three main child stars of the show, because surprise, Conrad Bain, who played Philip Drummond, he did not have any scandals. It was all related to the three kids, Todd Bridges, Dana Plato, and Gary Coleman. So first up, I'm going to do Todd Bridges. So I'm going to give you a little background on him. He was born in 1965 in San Francisco. His mom and dad were both in the business. His mom was like a manager or agent. His dad was an actor. Most of his siblings and most of his family, even his nieces and stuff, are also actors. So it's like everyone in the family kind of does this. He had a pretty successful acting career going before Diff'rent Strokes, including starring or having a small role in the miniseries Roots, which was like a pretty big deal in the late 70s. After the series ended was when Bridges started having some troubles. He got addicted to crack cocaine, which is like the most 80s
Yeah.
thing you can do, right? In 1989, he was actually arrested for the attempted murder of a drug dealer in Los Angeles. The drug dealer's name was Kenneth Tex Clay. I doubt he was a cowboy. The prosecution accused him of shooting Bridges. So it was just an attempted murder. Bridges pleaded not guilty to the charges.
Wait, the prosecution accused
Him of shooting this drug dealer.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You said Bridges, that's why.
Oh, sorry. He was actually represented by Johnny Cochran.
Oh,
so this is like
wow.
one of Johnny Cochran's first big cases, and much like very similar to like the OJ trial. Cochran his defense sort of relied on bringing in an outside storyline as to why. Like with OJ, it was like the cops were corrupt, so we can't trust any of the evidence because it's a systemic racism, right? With this one, he really drove home that Bridges had been driven to drugs by the exploitive entertainment industry,
Right.
and he was molested and like all of this kind of shit, and that he had also been unfairly framed. So this is like an early, precursor to the OJ trial,
Right.
The unfairly framed thing. And there were witnesses that testified that Bridges wasn't present at the time of the shooting and stuff like that. And he was acquitted of the charges. But that sort of set him down this road as like this criminal ex-child star.
Right.
He also, after that, was arrested a few more times for possession and concealed weapons charges. He also was arrested in 1984 for ramming into someone's car during an argument. But after years of battling drug addiction, I think shortly after that, sort of in the mid-90s, he did become sober. In fact, in 1998, him and his brother, James, saved the life of a 51-year-old paraplegic woman who nearly drowned in her wheelchair while she was like rolling into a lake while fishing. So they just happened to be there, and she like accidentally started rolling into the lake while fishing, and obviously she's a paraplegic, so her name was Stella. And her quote was, "I was thanking God that he was there, and everyone had been saying nothing but bad stuff about Todd Bridges on the news and in the papers, but he has a heart of gold." And Todd himself said after the rescue, "We felt God had put us there at the right time to save this lady's life because there was no one else around."
Did he get sober after that, or was he
No,
sober?
this was after he was sober. So sort of,
Right. Can I just in a
course,
sidebar,
aside.
because just about drug addicted former child stars or drug addicted people in the entertainment industry, there's nothing that makes my skin crawl more than making fun, like the collective sort of making fun or demonizing someone's drug use. And I feel like it's only been in the last couple of years that people have sort of taken pause to that a little bit more,
right?
Because
recognizing it's not funny to make fun of like Amanda Bynes or
it's
whoever.
a disease,
right? Yeah.
Right. And I just reminded me that it's like the 10-year anniversary of like Britney Spears' Blackout album, which came just on the heels of her having her own battles with mental illness, and it just reminded me how different it was even just 10 years ago, the media's narrative about that stuff. And obviously I have a soft spot in my heart for crackheads and cokeheads, being a former one.
Well, this was definitely the first time I remember knowing someone as a child star and then really watching them spiral.
Yeah.
Because this was like a big story. I remember vividly seeing the courtroom pictures of him and like the mugshots and all that stuff. But yeah, so he did get clean. He wrote a book called Killing Willis, From Diff'rent Strokes to the Mean Streets to the Life I Always Wanted, a very inspirational memoir where he talks about his drug addiction and criminal charges, his childhood sexual abuse, and also just trying to get over being identified as Willis and sort of find his path.
Right.
He also started speaking across the country about the dangers of drug use, and he has sort of some moderate acting success. He was actually on Everybody Hates Chris. I think that might be his most recent sort of real legit acting role. He had some other weird sort of, I don't know if they're acting roles, but sort of celebrity type things. He actually defeated Vanilla Ice in 2002 on an episode of Celebrity Boxing.
Oh, Celebrity Boxing makes
Do you remember?
Yes.
Was that with Tonya Harding, right?
That was Tonya Harding and Paula Jones were on Celebrity Boxing.
He was also on a 2006 episode of Celebrity Fear Factor. And then
oh my God, what did he have to do?
I don't know. But it did say he was eliminated after the first stunt. Did you ever see the one where they had to drink the cup of horse semen or something?
Oh no.
I think they never aired it.
I couldn't watch that show because even the trailers for it made me fucking ill.
I always remember this one where they were eating like a bull's ball and it was like really tough and it was just like
I just remember the bugs, people being covered in cockroaches.
I just don't need 50 grand that much.
Yeah.
He also was on, do you remember the Skating with Celebrities? Like the precursor to Dancing with the Stars?
Yes.
And he was eliminated after the second episode. And I thought this was hilarious because he was using roller skates instead of ice skates.
Oh, wait a minute. So he got on the ice with roller skates?
Yes, I guess. I have to see that somehow. We have to find it and post it.
Totally.
And then, so here's a quote from him after all of this kind of stuff. The bottom line is I've made stupid choices, but I got my life together and that's the difference. I'm not the same idiot I used to be. And you know what? That's what it's all about, right? All you can do is not be the idiot you were in the past.
That's growth.
Yeah. So good for him. And he's doing well. So that's a happy
This has a happy ending.
These are going to get progressively worse, just so you know.
Okay.
I've put them in order. So maybe I should have stopped with the happy one, but you know what? No.
That's not what the show's about.
I had to end on the, you'll see. Okay, so next up we have Gary Coleman. So Gary Coleman was born outside of Chicago on February 8th, 1968. He was actually adopted at birth. And he had chronic kidney disease when he was born. The medication that was used to treat that disease is what stunted his growth. He never grew past 4 foot 8. Yeah.
I always thought it was a inherited or a...
no.
He was born with it.
So he was born with the kidney disease. That's what caused his cherubic look. Like it also caused... Like the way it stunted his growth, and it's also why he had that sort of baby-like face for much of his life. Like even until he...
Well, he was short too. Yeah. He
was really short. Yeah. He suffered from kidney problems his whole life. He had 2 kidney transplants in 1973 and 1984, and he had dialysis his whole life. So while he's a child star on Diff'rent Strokes, he's suffering through this. So we mentioned already that he was this breakout star of Diff'rent Strokes. So he earned way more money than the other kids on the show.
He was getting the Urkel, except less irritating.
Right. He got about $100,000 per episode. In Todd Bridges' autobiography, he actually commented on how unhappy Gary Coleman was during shooting, and that he was working really long hours, and despite his age and health problems, he was just forced to do all of this, and he would sit on the set sort of separating himself from the rest of the cast. So he was very isolated child.
And he was playing a little bit younger than he actually was.
Definitely. Well, I think that's pretty common with a lot of child stars. You see they have these sort of things that they were born with or something that makes them look a little younger than they are. And that's sort of why they're very successful early on. But then they don't grow into an adult.
Right.
Or a typical looking adult. Anyways, so he in a 1993 interview, Coleman actually said that he had twice attempted suicide by overdosing on pills. Like that's how bad his depression was.
Wait, he said that in a 1982?
93 interview. 93. So this would be about 5 years after the show was canceled, or maybe a little longer. So despite having all that money, when everything was over, he had about a quarter of what he earned after paying his parents, who were his managers, and all of the other people. 3 years after the series ended, he actually sued his parents and his former manager for misappropriation of funds, and he was awarded over $1.3 million in that decision. So it was proven that they fucking screwed their kid. Mm-hmm. I mean, screwed their kid over, not screwed their kid. I don't want to start naming more rumors. But despite that judgment, I don't even know that he actually ever got that. In 1999, he did file for bankruptcy protection, and he blamed pretty much everyone for his bankruptcy. And the quote is, "From me to my accountants, to my parents, to agents, to lawyers, and back to me again." But it's like, what are you going to do when you're a kid?
Yeah.
I mean, so along with the Todd Bridges, I very distinctly remember, like, in the late 90s, a big tabloid story was that Gary Coleman was working as a security guard at the mall. Do you remember seeing that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was while he was working as a security guard at this mall that he had his first brush with the law. In 1998, he was charged with assaulting a woman that he punched while he was working as a security guard at a shopping mall. I know. So wait, you're going to hear this. I feel a little less bad for her, but I still don't think you should ever punch a woman. The woman was named Tracy Fields, and she was a Los Angeles bus driver, and she was a fan of Gary Coleman's. So she sees him at the mall, and she approached him to request his autograph. At the time, he was actually buying a bulletproof vest. So I don't know what kind of store at the mall this is. Is that like...
Whoa.
Contempo casual?
Wait, wasn't he just working at the mall?
He was working at the mall, but I guess he was
on break?
On duty. Yeah, off duty or on break. And he was at a store buying a bulletproof vest. I've literally never seen that kiosk at the mall.
Was
I don't know.
In Texas?
I think it was in LA. It was in LA.
Where is this mall?
I don't know. So he said no to her, and they started arguing. And it was that point that she started mocking his career and his downfall and saying kind of thing like, look at you, like, look at where you are, like, you have nothing, da 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 da. And he cold clocked her in the face. A few times he punched her, and it was all witnessed. Like, this was not like...
He really did punch her.
Yeah, he fucking punched her. He was arrested.
Well, how big was this woman? I need to know. Because...
Well, I'm going to tell you, she was bigger than him. I mean, come on.
Right.
So he was arrested and put on trial. And during the trial, he testified that she was getting scary. The hair on the back of my neck was beginning to stand on end. I'm 4'8", 86 pounds of nothing. I was getting scared, and she was getting ugly. He did end up pleading no contest to the charge of assault, and he received a suspended jail sentence and was ordered to pay her hospital bill, which was $1,600 or so. He also was ordered to take anger management classes. Coleman was actually really ashamed of what happened. Like, this was not like... He was not like
he was
proud
like,
of this.
Do it again.
Right. No, he was completely ashamed. But people seemed really intent on humiliating him. I think seeing that security guard, it was just like, I don't know why people get off on people's downfalls so much. Like,
right.
I get it when it's like if Trump had a major downfall, it would keep me.
Oh, it'd be great.
Because he's a bad person. But to see someone who did nothing, it's like people just, I just don't have that gene, whatever it is.
Well, it goes back to any of the child stars or like Britney Spears, like we said before, is like people ate that up with a spoon, and it was sickening how much people loved it.
Right.
And relished seeing this person, this human being crumble before our very eyes.
Yeah, I actually remember a few years ago when Amanda Bynes was having that meltdown. I was like assigned something to write about her, and I said no. I was like, I can't. I don't think it's funny.
It's
like,
not funny.
Yeah, and I remember that was sort of this turning point where I felt like it was sort of like unacceptable.
That was the turning point because enough people in our circle of...
I didn't see what was funny, and it's not, I'm not even saying I'm a good person, but it was like I don't know. Like, I have no connection to her. I'm not like a fan of hers. It wasn't like anything like that. But I just knew it's like, this seems wrong to me. Like, this is someone who's in trouble. Like,
they're hurting.
This isn't someone who's just being a bitch or, do you know what I mean? Like,
imagine being famous and we've all had bad moments in our life, and we've all done things we wish we could take back. But imagine having your worst moment, the worst thing you've done, or the worst, most embarrassing, humiliating moment of your life being broadcast to the entire world.
Right. Especially in the age of social media.
Right.
Like,
where everyone has a hot take.
Where everyone just has their hot take and their fucking joke and da-da-da-da.
You become a meme. It's just awful.
So in 2001, while he was still working as a security guard, because I feel like when that stuff got publicized, people would go there to kind of be like, oh, look, there's the security like Arnold, whatever. He was videotaped trying to stop a vehicle from entering the mall, and the driver made fun of him and then released the tape to be broadcast on like whatever tabloid type shows.
Right.
So it was just purely a humiliation thing. He was doing some on and off again acting, but very minor stuff. In 2003, I don't know if you remember this, he ran for governor of California. It was like when like 100 people ran.
That was when Gray Davis got recalled.
Right. And Arnold Schwarzenegger won, but it was literally like 100 people.
There was like the porn star
Mary Carey
was running.
Yeah. So he was sort of one of the bigger names who ran for governor.
That really felt like the ultimate, because I'm a California native. You were in California.
I was there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I remember when that was happening, and that really felt like the precursor to the Trump era.
Right. Because it was like a celebrity, and he just had the name.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that was like the biggest fucking joke, was that Arnold Schwarzenegger is the governor of California. He was the governor. Like,
yeah.
We were like, how did this happen?
Right. And I mean, looking back though, don't you think like, God, what was I complaining about?
It was so quaint.
Like, because he's pretty liberal Republican
compared to Trump, but still, I mean, it was like,
no, it was embarrassing.
It was so embarrassing.
So in 2004, Coleman was back in the news because a character was based on him in the hit musical Avenue Q, and the character was sort of like used as one of these, like, I mean, you know, the musical, it's sort of like a kids show, Sesame Street type deal,
but for adults.
But for adults. And his character was illustrating that idea of like how these children's shows tell kids they're all special, and then they grow up to become adults and they're like, oh wait, I'm just a loser like everyone else, right? Like, so he wasn't happy about that. And the producers said they initially wanted him for the role, but that he bailed during discussions at some point, and they just recast it. But he wasn't happy about it, and he even threatened to sue them, saying at some point, I wish there was a lawyer on earth that would sue them for me. But he had no case, so that's why no lawyer took the case. I mean, lawyers will take any case if there's money involved. In 2005, he finally left Los Angeles and moved to a town called Santaquin, which is outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. In 2007, he met his future bride, Shannon Price, who was 22. They met on the set of a film.
22?
Yeah, so he's almost 40 at this point. They met on the set of the film Church Ball and married a few months after that. They had a tumultuous relationship, to say the least. This was the first woman he had ever been with sexually.
What?
So he was a virgin until he was almost 40. And I saw someone say, in something I read, that he was twice her age and she was twice his size. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
I think she was like a big girl, like tall.
And big.
Yeah. I don't know if she was overweight,
but
like
big.
She was big
She was
compared
large.
to him. So in 2007, he was cited for misdemeanor disorderly conduct after he got into a heated discussion with his wife in public. They had like a very volatile relationship. In 2008, him and his wife got into some legal troubles following an incident at a bowling alley.
What could that have been?
Well, here's what happened.
Oh.
A person at the bowling alley said that Coleman's wife snatched his phone after he attempted to take pictures of Gary Coleman. And then Gary Coleman and the man started arguing. And then, according to witnesses, Coleman backed his truck into the guy, not into the guy's anything, into him, striking his knee, pulling him under the vehicle. And then he hit like another car. He pleaded no contest again. So at least you could say about Gary Coleman, he never tries to like get out of it. He kind of just accepts it in a no contest kind of way, at least. So he was, pled no contest to disorderly conduct and reckless driving. I love when reckless driving is used to describe when you hit someone. Like it was not an accident. Reckless driving.
Right.
He was fined like $100. And then I think he was sued a few years after that for an undisclosed amount. In May of 2008, him and his wife made an appearance on the show Divorce Court to air out their differences and try to like get back on track, to get their marriage back on track.
Yikes.
It did not work. I don't know how successful Divorce Court is. Did you ever watch that show?
I never watched
I've
any
ever
of
seen
those
it.
judge
I remember
shows.
it. Yeah, I didn't either. But despite that appearance, they did end up getting divorced in August of 2008, so just a few months later, and they cited irreconcilable differences. Coleman actually filed a restraining order against Shannon after they divorced, but then they ended up living together after the divorce. In 2009, they were involved in another domestic dispute, and Price, the wife, was actually arrested for domestic violence against Coleman, and they were both cited for disorderly conduct. So in 2010, Coleman was arrested once more for an outstanding domestic assault warrant and booked in the Utah County Jail. And I feel like that might be the famous mugshot of him.
Yes, probably.
Because I don't know that he was ever given a mugshot for the other things, but I'm not sure. Because I definitely remember this one. He was older at this point. He was in really bad health at this time, and it kept deteriorating. His finances were really fucked also. And he started doing things to kind of trade on his childhood fame to earn money. One of the things he did was he tried to auction a pair of his pants on eBay. And the bids went up to like $400,000, but they were all joke bids.
Oh.
And then Jimmy Kimmel actually ended up buying the pants for $500, and he had hung them in the rafters of his TV studio. So I guess it's a good thing. Like, it was sweet, but $500 seems very inconsequential, right?
Wait, $500?
Yeah, he bought the pants for $500 almost to save face, like help Gary Coleman save face, like because the bids. I
thought the bids were like $400,000.
Yeah, but they were all fake. Like, people were just bidding.
I get that, but Jimmy Kimmel should have just matched the bid.
Well, I don't know. You talked to Jimmy Kimmel.
I think Jimmy Kimmel has enough money to.
But maybe not then. Did he have his talk show in 2008? 2008?
He had the Man Show before that. Okay. He was a successful guy.
I mean, you could take it as a bad thing or a good
thing,
I guess.
Maybe I'll tweet him later. Why didn't you give Gary Coleman the $400,000?
This one kind of is sad, but sort of funny to me. He also participated in a movie called Midgets versus Mascots. That was kind of like an Olympics pitting short people against sports mascots.
This is very anti-PC.
Yeah. Hilariously enough, Gary Coleman was not thrilled with the result of this movie.
Duh.
He is quoted as saying, "I don't like it when small people are made fun of." But it's like, well, what were you thinking when you did a movie called Midgets versus Mascots? Like, I mean, it doesn't really, I mean, maybe they changed the title last minute. I just don't know. But, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? In May of 2010, Coleman actually hit his head after suffering a seizure and falling down the stairs. He was hospitalized after that. Although he was initially conscious, he eventually fell into a coma and was placed on life support, never recovering. He died at age 42, on May 28th, 2010. His ex-wife is actually the one who gave the okay to take him off of life support. And the tabloids had a field day with this. There was even that newspaper, The Globe, which is that a UK tabloid?
It is, okay. I think.
They published a picture of her, which clearly she gave to them, of her sitting next to him while he was incubated in a coma, holding his hand. And then they had the headline, I'm sure she didn't approve of this, that said, "It was murder."
Right.
But the hospital released a statement saying that he had actually given her permission to make medical decisions for him initially when he got into the hospital. So everything was copacetic, and his death was ruled accidental. So it was not murder. But
this was from him hitting his head.
He basically had a seizure for some reason and fell and hit his head because he fell down the stairs. So it was like it wasn't even related to his kidney disease, but I do think he was in bad health.
Yeah,
because of all of that.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. But she is garbage still. So don't feel, she didn't kill him, but she is garbage.
She did the absolute least.
She actually sued whatever estate he might have had left, saying that she was his common law wife because they did live together several years after the divorce. But the judge ruled against her after hearing evidence that she had had numerous affairs while they were living together during that time, that she had also physically abused him in public, led him around by the hand like a child, and displayed no physical affection toward him in front of anyone, which is so fucking sad.
Oh, man.
The last tidbit I'm going to give that also made me sad for some reason, but it did bring him joy, so maybe I'm just a bitch. He was an avid model railroad collector, and there are pictures of him I have seen where he's like in the
conductor's
stripes
hat.
like the conductor's hat, the blue and white stripes. So
that makes me really sad.
It makes me really sad too,
but it also makes me happy that it's not like a sad like, oh, you're pathetic for being into model trains. I just think it's so
sweet, and it's just like I feel like this guy just wanted to have a normal life.
Right.
and he couldn't escape it.
It's like the classic. It's like any.
And his look, I think, made it really hard for him to kind of blend in.
Yeah, because
do you know what I mean?
He had a medical condition, and
and he just looked the same. Like when you see pictures of him, he looks exactly like he does look older towards the end, but like
he still looks like a child.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the last child, Dana Plato, who I affectionately am considering the Tonya Harding of this group because they have some similar things.
I was gonna mention her bangs.
Oh, right.
Her hair.
The style. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Tonya Harding like admired Dana Plato's style.
They
on
have
Diff'rent
a similar
Strokes.
Style.
Because it's like, it definitely seems like Tonya Harding is like the trailer trash version of like trying to imitate Kimberly Drummond. Like that style with the winged hair and the tight jeans and like the whatever blouses.
They were both teenagers during the same time.
Right. So she was born Dana Michelle Strain on November 7th, 1964, to an unwed teenage mother who already had an 18-month-old baby when Dana was born. When she was 7 months old, the mom gave her up for adoption, and she was adopted by Dean and Florine Plato, and she grew up in the Valley. Her parents actually got divorced when she was 3 years old, and her mom put her out on the child actor circuit from a very young age. She was actually in over 100 commercials before she got on Diff'rent Strokes. And she was even offered the part of Reagan in The Exorcist, but her mom nixed it.
Whoa.
So she like had the part and her mom turned it down. Yeah.
Wow. I would be mad at mom and be like, think of those residual checks we'd still be getting.
Right. Here's like another connection to Tonya Harding. Plato was also a really good figure skater, and that she actually was training to be on an Olympic team. Like that was what she really wanted to do. And then she got the role of Kimberly Drummond on Diff'rent Strokes, and her mom was like, nah, you have to go earn some money.
Yeah.
So she, that was a really successful gig. She didn't get Gary Coleman money, but she got about $25,000 an episode, which I would fucking take even today, right?
Yeah.
But her life really started falling apart during the series. She started smoking pot, drinking. She moved up to cocaine eventually. And she actually, at the age of 14, she OD'd on Valium. And then I mentioned earlier, she became pregnant midway through season 6. And I think earlier I said the pregnancy, they thought of writing it in and then they ended up not doing it. Part of that was also because she had already done so much fucked up shit.
Yeah.
It was like, she's not worth the effort, basically. Yeah. She's not wholesome. It's going to ruin the show's image, da-da-da-da. So in 1984, she married the father of the child. His name is Lanny Lambert. He was a musician, so we all know what's going on there. And they had their son, Tyler, who was born on July 2nd, 1984. She did try to move on. I think I mentioned before, she did kind of have some guest spots on the show for the last 2 seasons, including the bulimia episode. But basically, at some point, she's like, you know what? I'm moving past my child star days, and I'm going to start moving into adult roles. And when you're thinking I want to be taken seriously as an actress, what do? You go get implants and you model for Playboy, which is what Dana did in June of 1989. She modeled for a Playboy pictorial. And I think it was a pretty big thing because it was like a child star posing nude.
Yeah.
It did not help her acting career at all, unfortunately.
She had to model naked for Vanity Fair and mix the implants.
Exactly.
Duh.
Yes. Make it artsy. Heroin chic.
Totally.
So she ended up separating from Lambert the same week her mother died of scleroderma, which is a really horrible, painful disease. Mm-hmm. It's like an autoimmune, right? It was at that time she assigned the power of attorney over to an accountant who disappeared with most of her money, leaving her with very little of the money she earned during her TV fame days. And then after her divorce, she actually lost custody of her son because she was really spiraling into a drug addiction at that point, and alcohol too. I think the alcohol was almost worse, but she did do drugs as well. She was given visitation rights, but she ended up moving to Vegas, I don't know, which never seems like a good sign to me when you're spiraling out of control, to move to Vegas. She was really poor. She was unemployed. It was at this point, this is also a tabloid story. I remember when I was young, she started working at a dry cleaning store in Vegas. And
this is in the 90s?
Yeah, early 90s. And actually customers reported that she was very down to earth and like a cool chick, right? Because, you know, obviously the National Enquirer was there, like fucking getting these stories. Ugh. Like let a bitch live. On February 28th, 1991, Dana actually robbed a video store. She walked into a video store with a pellet gun and demanded, you know, money from the cash register from the clerk. The clerk actually called 911 and said, "I've just been robbed by the girl who played Kimberly on Diff'rent Strokes." Can you even imagine that happening?
Awesome.
Right. 15 minutes after the robbery, she came back to the scene because she forgot her glasses. I'm sorry.
Well, what kind of glasses were they?
Just her like prescription glasses, but she was probably fucking on drugs.
She was on drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cops were actually there, and she came back, and obviously it's like, there's Kimberly from Diff'rent Strokes.
So classic.
And she got arrested. The robbery, all she got from that robbery was $164.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You're in Vegas and you're robbing a video store.
Well, it's not like she's going to do a casino heist.
I know she's not going to do a casino heist, but, you know, rob a place. There's other places you
could
rob.
Right, a restaurant or something.
That you take in a lot more money.
Right.
That's what she had to have been fucked up. That's not smart criminal thinking.
No. Wayne Newton actually posted her bail, which was $13,000.
Good for Wayne.
And she was given 5 years probation. She's quoted as saying, "If I hadn't gotten caught, it would have been the worst thing that happened to me because I would have died of a drug overdose." So I guess she was fucked up when she did it.
She was great. Right. I mean, I know a lot of people who have their saving grace was them
right.
getting put into
They're
jail.
Arrested, yeah. In January of 1992, she was arrested again for forging a prescription for Valium. So she ended up going to jail at that point because she violated her probation by doing that. She did enter a drug rehab at that time, immediately after getting out of jail, actually. So Dana struggled most of her life. At some point, she did try to kind of capitalize on her fame and started doing softcore pornography. She did she appears nude in several of them, including Prime Suspect is one, Compelling Evidence, and one that was called Diff'rent Strokes, The Story of Jack and Jill, ... and Jill.
Wait a minute. That sounds like a porn.
It is. It's a softcore erotic drama, Rachel. So, I mean, the Diff'rent Strokes, it had nothing to do with the show. They just used the term Diff'rent Strokes to capitalize on her fame.
Jack and Jill?
Yeah. The Diff'rent Strokes, The Story of Jack and Jill. But they just put Diff'rent Strokes in there. It wasn't like she played.
I'm going to post stills on our Instagram page
we'll find it.
From some of these movies.
She also, that same year, I think that was 1998, she appeared in a cover story for a lesbian lifestyle magazine called Girlfriends. Do you know this magazine?
I don't know this magazine.
We should find this as well.
Absolutely. Was she a lesbian?
She actually came out as a lesbian, but then she later recanted.
Come on, Dana.
Like, what the hell?
Come on.
At some point around this time, she became engaged to a man named Fred Potts, but they broke up because she returned to drugs again. So then on May 7th, 1999, she appeared on the Howard Stern show. It was on this show that she declared that she had been sober for over a decade, which doesn't exactly line up.
Right.
Yeah. And she was a mess on this show. Like, I don't know if we can find audio of it. We might be able to, but she broke down in tears twice. If
I can find the audio, I'm going to put it in this episode.
So, and she said, "No joke, I'm tired of defending my character. I am what I am. What you see is what you get." She really reveals all in this interview. She discusses her financial problems, her run-ins with the law. She admits to being a recovering alcoholic and drug addict, but she says she's adamant that she's been sober for more than 10 years at that point. People started calling... Oh, she did say that she had taken painkillers once for molars being removed. That was her one caveat. People kept calling her and were insulting her about her sobriety. Oh, God. She was defiant and she said that she would take a drug test to prove that she was sober. Howard was defending her while the callers were sort of berating her.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. But she did sound out of it on the show. She, as I said before, she was practically in tears the whole time. At some point, she did say that she would give locks of her hair to send off for testing. So on the show, she actually they took hairs out of her head while they're doing the show. Like Gary Delabate did that. And she, bragged when he did it that the results would vindicate her.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Right. So she said, after the show went off the air, she said, "I want my hair back." And Howard Stern says, "That's when I knew she was lying. That's when I knew she must have been on drugs at that moment." So, sorry.
So
He says that she gave us our hair, and then she said, "No, I want it back." And Gary wouldn't give it back to her, and the whole thing was a big mess after the show. Plato grabbed the hair momentarily, and then she returned it again, professing her sobriety. The next day, Plato went with her new fiance and was driving back to Colorado when they stopped at her new fiance's mother's home in Moore, Oklahoma. It was Mother's Day, and that's why they were stopping there. Plato went to lie down inside of the motorhome that was outside of the house. And it was there that she died of an overdose of the painkiller Lortab and the muscle relaxant Soma. Her death was eventually ruled a suicide.
How much Somas did she take?
I do not know that. Do you know what that drug is?
I used to take it.
You did?
In high school. It was great.
Don't
do it, kids.
Yeah.
Do not do it. I was very fucking trashy and stupid in high school. But it's like I don't know. I think it's an opiate.
Okay.
It fucking knocks you on your ass.
So after she died, people were fucking pissed at Howard Stern.
For they said he was being exploitative or
they felt like that he drove her to the edge
with that embarrassing humiliation.
He did say, you know who actually, the first person who said something was Todd Bridges' mom. Blamed Stern initially. She was one of the first people. She said, after going to his show, maybe she thought, I need to take a Valium to calm me down because people think I'm on drugs. If you're not taking drugs and they're saying you are, and then you're tripping out, she's very sensitive. Stern said he didn't feel any blame. And he said that Plato, other than the crying, seemed to be having a good time on the show.
Other than the crying.
Right. Everything. Yeah.
I feel like anything, if you start crying on a TV show, no matter.
But I think she was back and forth, but that's very erratic and manic, right?
But I also think that she could have been crying and then trying to fake happiness to be
I know exactly
normal.
that feeling.
I do too. Yeah. It's awful.
He said maybe we gave her one last good time. She thanked me afterwards. She was very sweet and nice. We still have her hair. Obviously, we don't have to test it now. We had a lot of deception going on, I think. Todd Bridges afterwards said, I thought something was wrong and I was hoping I was wrong. You could see it on Dana's face that she was hurting and she needed a lot of help. Conrad Bain stated after she died, it's a tragic case. I recall her as a beautiful, talented young girl, and that's the way she is in my mind. 11 years after Dana died, on May 6, 2010, her son, Tyler Lambert, died at the age of 25 from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. He was also a drug addict and alcoholic, and people afterwards said that he wanted to be with his mom.
Oh.
Yeah. So the conclusion of the curse, I guess, Conrad Bain actually died at the age of 89 in 2013, so that's not anything
He wasn't
curseful.
Affected by this.
And there's a lot of talk about these people. Paul Peterson is an ex-child star, and he's sort of like a child star advocate now. Mm-hmm. You'll always see him on any fucking case about child stars.
Yeah.
He had this to say, there's nothing that you can do that satisfies people. They think you're a failure if you don't continue to be a television star. Another woman named Lisa Rappaport, who was a psychology professor at Wayne State University, she said it's really easy to just label things as a curse,
right.
But it's not really, it's really ignoring a lot of things. There was a 2-year study of 75 former child actors, and she said that they found that the kid stars who had good home lives were perfectly fine. And just because just like with any life, there are people who have bad home lives and bad situations. And as we can tell, all of these people did, other than Todd Bridges, who actually managed to come out of it okay, right? She said, I think that it's perhaps our perspective is distorted by the fact that every time somebody gets arrested, we hear about it.
Yeah.
Bridges, Mary Jo Catlett, who played Pearl, Danny Cooksey, who played the annoying Sam, the red-haired Moppet, and Charlotte Rae are the only surviving cast members at this point.
Yeah.
So that's the story. That's it.
I know Charlotte Rae's granddaughter.
Oh, you do?
She's a very lovely woman. She's a woman. She's like my age. She's a girl.
So yeah.
That's wow. That was
a lot.
That
right?
was depressing.
I know the last one was the saddest one because the son. It was just like the epilogue you don't want to fucking hear. Like
I just like. I mean, it's true. It's like, I don't know. I was never a child star, like, so I don't know what that feels like. I think actually Mara Wilson wrote a really interesting article about breaking down reasons or it's been a couple of years since I read it, but it was on Cracked. It was a really great article that she wrote because she obviously she's a child star from the 90s.
Right.
So she has a really good perspective on it. And
well, I think it's really the family.
I mean,
it's interesting in a way.
I don't know because, like, on one hand, I feel like...
I mean, I feel like you can still have something bad happen when you have a good family because that happens non-child star, too. You could have a good family and still be an addict.
Because the thing about alcoholism and addiction is it doesn't discriminate.
Right.
It doesn't care what family you had.
No.
Because there's also plenty of people who had a shitty family life and didn't turn into alcoholics.
Right.
So I don't know if it's like a perfect storm situation. I mean, I definitely believe also that
you definitely have access, probably more.
You have access, and I do believe that there are people who, like Drew Barrymore, who seemingly was able to grow out of her addiction, where she can drink like a normal person now. Because
it's also how you handle that not being famous anymore,
right?
Because it's really taken away from you as a kid. Very few grow in to become stars.
Yeah.
And you're either like a Mara Wilson who is fine and moves on and has other career avenues that she wants to pursue. I don't know.
Or you are working as a security guard, punching people.
Right.
And being made fun of, which is
But
wrong.
Wanting to move on, maybe. Like, there's nothing wrong with just getting a regular job and being a regular, productive member of society. But then you still have these people coming after you, and you still have tabloids coming after you, and no one wants to let you fucking move on.
I
thought the Todd Bridges thing was interesting, where he's like, once I had been labeled as this, it was really hard to move past. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think
I think of him still as that person on trial.
Right.
Because no one writes about his recovery as much or his like moving on.
Which sucks.
Right.
And it's also, I think the public just doesn't want to break up with that child star. They don't want to break up with that persona. They don't want to accept this child star that entertained them as a kid as a three-dimensional human being outside of their character. They want them to be that forever.
Right.
And they expect that because you had success in the entertainment industry as a kid, you can't just go work at a dry cleaner's. It's unacceptable. Or it's you're a loser.
Well, it's that Schadenfreude, but in a completely unreasonable
It's so
way.
unreasonable.
Like,
and
like, how do you get off and like, hey, I just can't. I mean,
we
talked about it.
Poor. I mean,
it's so low. It's just like the lowest thing. It's
it
like,
is the lowest.
I can't, but yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Wow.
That was a lot.
Yeah, we got some new Patreon contributors.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Stand by for 1 sec. Let me grab that list of people.
I'm actually really excited because we're going to do the Patreon bonus episode next, and it's related to one of the special episodes that Diff'rent Strokes did. That is like a huge influence in my lifetime.
If you haven't donated to our Patreon, this is the week to do it, because this very special Patreon only episode is going to be fucking lit. My computer's taking forever to load. Do you have any true crime scandals you want to share, Des?
No, I don't have any right now, but I can.
Can you
try to
pull
pull
up
up
our
that
Patreon
list?
contributors?
Sure, I will try to do that.
We're very disorganized.
Sorry, we've been going through a lot this week.
I had a very busy
Your
day.
Wi-Fi is actually not working, so I can't do it. So we'll just have to get you guys next week.
Yeah.
We'll get you next week.
We'll get you next week. But
Okay.
we love you guys.
We love you guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.